Good evening and welcome to the Select Board meeting of May 2nd, 2018. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. We're meeting here in the middle school previous to the second session of town meeting. We have a fairly light agenda. Does anyone have any announcements or agenda related things they want to bring up at this point?
Well, I had emailed you earlier today, Mr. Slaughter, to get it about the reconsideration.
I did.
Okay, and so I'm wondering when and how. We have a broad category that could fit under, at least to decide if we want to take it up again, and so I didn't know. We don't have to talk about it right this minute, I just wanted to know what you were thinking was about.
I did get that, and I don't have a problem with it, as far as revisiting it, I think. Because first of all, when we first discussed it, Mr. Steinberg wasn't there. It was Article 33, correct?
I wrote it down someplace.
I think so, but it will probably be next week, right? Either Monday or Wednesday next week, which I think would give us enough time, but.
To talk about it next Monday, or?
Right.
Okay.
I think so. I'll let the manager know first, but
or
then
we could ask if they want to put it back on.
Right. I may.
If no one wants to talk about it again except me, then there's no point, right?
Okay. I'll poll the group.
Okay. All right.
No, that seems fair enough. So I'll reach out to folks regarding Article 33 and whether we want to bring it up again. Is everything all right?
No, nothing changed.
Oh, you're not getting sound?
Yeah, this sounds weird.
No.
Testing.
All right. So on our agenda tonight, that we have a specific item to take up is Article 37, which is a petition article relative to noise bylaw. And when we were reviewing, after we'd gotten the memo from KP Law relative to things that could or could not or be taken action on, that town meeting could and could not take action on relative to the warrant, we didn't have this particular article on our agenda, so we couldn't take a specific motion relative to it and that particular memo. So I don't know, have you heard anything about what might be moved this evening relative to this one?
Well, I don't know if it'll be this evening, but
or not this evening, but whenever.
The last I heard from the school was it was going to be dismissed.
Right.
And I've also heard rumors that it would not be dismissed. So.
Right. So I think this one, my reading of the KP Law memo relative to this one was that it was clearly not something that town meeting should take action on at this time. And so I don't know if anybody had any other comment relative to it or any concerns that they wanted to raise at this point relative to it. It's almost at the end.
Yeah. So the recommendation that we come in was recommend dismissal.
We had recommended to dismiss, but actually I think more explicitly with some of those articles, we made note of the fact we shouldn't really take action, therefore the dismissal is the action allowable, but we sort of expressed a confirmation that it wasn't consistent with the charter transition.
So it's somewhat of my point about 33 supplemental dwellings, which we're not going to talk about tonight, but is when we were crafting these motions, I think we had an understanding that we were needing to decide this and that it would have an impact on what town meeting could vote on or not. And my understanding of that has changed, or the readout on that has changed. So I'm wondering, say we recommend dismissal and that's defeated and we're back to voting on it. We don't have a position. I mean, does this, I guess this covers that we wouldn't support.
Well, I think that what this also expresses, I think, is that there may be other action after town meeting that we might endeavor to do relative to town meeting action. If we felt it was, you know, an inappropriate thing, we might, one of the things that's been suggested is potentially including in a letter to the Attorney General to suggest we were advised by town council not to act on this, and
Mr. Bunker.
I think there's a bit of a disagreement between what town council, the town attorney had recommended to you and what town moderator
Yeah.
interprets. So
Yeah.
the town moderator interprets his duty is that he has to dispose of every article. So that those options are to dismiss, or to refer, or to vote it up or down. And so the options, I think, and so I think that he will be entertaining motions on this. And you previously you were, I think the board's feeling and town attorney's opinion was that it should not even be considered,
Right.
but
But it is.
that
It
the
will be.
moderator will be
Yeah.
in his interpretation. So that if you recommend dismissal, then you should be prepared. If that fails, do you want to recommend referral to the new council? If that fails, then yes or no on the main motion.
Right, and that's why I felt like on some of these, since they will be allowed to be voted on, even if an individual said he might ask for dismissal, that, I have a sense any request for dismissal might, in fact, be defeated, and some people very much want to vote on this.
right.
So do we need to at least have our presenter be prepared to talk about
Right.
the merits, not just the part that says not inconsistent,
Right.
but the merits or not of the article. 'Cause
Right.
on this one, I
Right.
think we may get to that.
Right. Mr. Wall, did you have something?
I mean, I think the manager puts it well. This is the problem I have is that if we can't take it off the warrant, for the reasons we've mentioned, it seems to me we should give a very clear instruction to the moderator that we see only two possible options for this. You know, I don't know if we can do that, but to say recommend dismissal is not consistent, I would almost rather have a motion that says, you know, find this to be inconsistent and conclude that the only possible votes on this article are dismissal or referral. Then let the moderator go in front of everyone and tell them why we're wrong. But I agree also with the manager that it'd be foolish not to have a fallback position because for the reasons Ms. Kruger said, there are any number of reasons that a dismissal could not
Could fail.
be the ultimate outcome. I mean, assuming we feel that
Right, if that's
the
what we
negative
think,
vote is
yeah.
what's desired.
Let's look,
Is there
who's presenting on,
It very well be me.
They're all
but
Ms. Kruger.
It could be Ms. Brewer. It's Ms. Brewer.
No.
Right.
You were gone for this.
I'm not 37.
Brewer, but,
Oh, it's Miss Brewer?
yeah.
Ah,
Always somebody who's done.
someone's
mean-
not here.
I guess one question I'd pose is that if we recommend dismissal, does that tacitly imply we do not recommend? Or are those
Well, I
distinct
think we
enough
have
that we
to
draw
say-
those?
I mean,
They're different.
we had some where we liked the substance but thought it was inconsistent.
Right.
And there's some where we didn't like the
Right.
substance and also. So I think we have to be prepared to speak to both of those issues.
Right.
When we present.
Right.
As that was it. And that,
Do we want to consider a motion relative to this one? Or,
do
which
we-
might involve a series of positions, depending on outcomes,
Well-
which I'm perfectly fine with those. So, if
So
anyone-
I'm thinking, even if, my position would still be to recommend dismissal for the substance,
Mhm.
but, you know, if the dismissal's already failed, then, that's why I think when we present, it has to be both because it's inconsistent, and also, if it is to be voted up or down, these are our, you know, three objections, if that's what the conclusion is of this group.
Okay. Mr. Wall?
I guess I'm thinking out loud here, but,
Okay.
you know, part of what makes me think we should make a stronger statement is I've heard some of my people in the public saying you should allow these articles to go through or you should not allow them to go through. And I've heard my colleagues sometimes say, we have to be really strict about this and we don't care what KP law says. They may think it's permissible, we don't. So it seems to me if we're going to make those kind of judgments that may be at odds with town council, then if we think this is really inconsistent with the charter, we really have to make that statement strongly. And I think, I don't know, I'm wondering whether just saying dismissal is non-consistent is good enough. Is it good enough to have the person on our behalf make that part of the statement for the rationale? Or do we have to be more directive toward the moderator with all that entails?
Right.
So that's a question, not an answer.
Yeah, so the one where we were inconsistent with the guidance document, I had emailed Mr. Slaughter and asked if not tonight, then it might be Monday night, that we had a chance to reconsider, because if the moderator is going in a different direction than what we thought when we were taking that strict path, you know, I don't mind if people are unhappy with me, but to have them unhappy
They're
for no reason, because it's going to happen anyway, then what?
Yeah.
Maybe we'd do better saying we support it or we don't, rather than pick the one out that it seems at this point may be the only one where we are being inconsistent with the guidance and being stricter. To what avail if the moderator's already decided he's going to let those go ahead?
This is another thing for the post-mortem or, post-town meeting discussion, the coordination or lack thereof, or not coordination, but the difference in points of view or clarity of explanation between town council and town meeting moderator and our body is frustrating. Right. It should be simpler than this.
It should be, but it's
Never
not.
is. It never is. People have their
It's unfortunate that the sequence wasn't a little bit better. If we had gotten earlier advice from town council that putting something on the warrant constituted a judgment that it was an important matter for the town, we would have reviewed the warrant differently, but we're beyond that now and we can't go backwards in time.
Right.
So maybe the thing to do is to to vote a position, and I think we all know that where we would lean on the position, but in the statement originally suggest to Ms. Brewer that in the statement in support of dismissal to at least put in a little bit about the problems with the proposal, so that there are reasons stated beyond just that we think that it's contrary to advice of council, is an appropriate action of this town meeting. And then if it comes up on a main motion, then it gives her the opportunity to say that we are recommending against it for reasons I've already stated to you, and let me expand on it a little bit, or however she proposes to handle it.
Yeah, I think KP Law had put out a lot
Doug,
of.
can you lean back a little?
KP Law had put out a lot of explanations on why it shouldn't be acted on, very substantive on
Yes,
the content.
particularly
So you would have the procedure and the content as two arguments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we
Exactly.
may need to put that out at the beginning, not just dismiss because it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
I think we could go down on that one.
Right. So, would someone like to craft a motion?
Oh,
I think the motion could be fairly simple at this.
there's one on the motion sheet.
Probably.
Take a look at it for a
Ms.
second.
Brewer to speak very forcefully.
We've already recommended dismissal. So haven't you already done this motion in essence?
We've not.
You have not voted on it.
Oh, you haven't voted on it at all.
We voted dismissal, I think, freestanding dismissal, I think, before.
I don't think you took them action.
Did we
No,
not?
I think
Okay,
we
we may not
didn't
have.
for whatever
I think
reason.
it came on early when you were doing review, the very first night you were looking at warrants, but you
Oh,
didn't
right.
vote
We
in
didn't-
any.
We didn't vote it because we were waiting for this.
We didn't have the guidance, and then our last meeting, there were specific articles listed, and this one wasn't.
Right, it wasn't on the agenda.
Yeah,
We couldn't
that's
do
right.
that.
So I think perhaps relative to this motion, we could say what's in the bold there as far as not consistent,
Yeah.
but then add and whatever else, relative to other reasons, if we wanted to not paint it
Except
as
that
solely that.
except that we don't usually put our reason
Right.
in the motion.
No.
Right.
As long as Ms. Brewer's instructed to.
Article.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we use this, as long as we add that element to the statement.
Okay, so what I came up with, let me read it all the way through to make sure it makes sense after having written something in the middle of it. It would be move to recommend dismissal of Article 37 petition amend general noise bylaw to the April 30, 2018 annual town meeting is inconsistent with the charter transition process, and if that motion fails and there is a motion on the substance of the article, the select board does not recommend this article.
Done? Okay. Second.
That was the second?
Yeah.
All right. Is there further discussion? Here. Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So it's 4-0 with one absent.
Great.
I'm going to make a note here myself. Okay. So, thank you for that, Mr. Steinberg. I appreciate that. This is, I think we may, speaking of 33, we may want to revisit sort of, if nothing else, our talking points relative to whether it's the merits of the article and also consistent or inconsistent with
Right.
transition,
Right.
or just one or the other.
Right. Because we've been working with those standards more and getting more clarification.
Right, right. So I think the other, so that takes care of 4A. 4B is the Charter Bylaw Review Committee charge. I think did you want to introduce this a little bit?
Sure, so,
Can you give me back you can just keep the motion sheet, but let me have the charge. Thanks.
So, a member of the committee brought to our attention that the charge of the committee is not consistent with the statement in the charter, where the name of the committee is listed as General Bylaw Review Committee, and the charge lists a review of the town general bylaws, and the member of the committee said the charter does not hold it to just general bylaws, it just says bylaws, and questioned if their task was restricted to just general bylaws or all bylaws.
Right.
And so what you have here is we had looked at this, and then we revised it on April 23rd, and this is the revisions. These are the revisions you made
Did we vote it?
at that time.
Okay, so we would be right,
Yeah.
voting a revision.
Because we discussed in the 29th also.
Yes,
28, whatever.
we discussed this at the retreat. It was the opening fight we had.
Right.
So in the actual charge itself, we just say bylaws. In the name, we say general.
So
So
with
No,
the-
and the charge itself actually says general on the
Does it as
second
well?
line.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought we,
Oh, yes, it
No,
does.
okay, we didn't.
we didn't, I thought I went, but I didn't. We didn't
More
resolve
than
it.
one reference.
Well, I guess I'll repeat what I said the other day, at our meeting of the 28th, is I think that under the larger heading of bylaw, there's general bylaws and there's zoning bylaws. They're both bylaws, and I think it's too soon to know that there's absolutely nothing to be looked at in the zoning bylaw. There may be very little there compared to in the general bylaws, but to me, bylaw is inclusive of both of those categories, and this makes sense to strike the word general in the title and in the second line. Oh, and then we'd have to change the revised date.
Change the what?
The
Oh,
revision.
date at the bottom.
Oh, right.
Was that a motion?
That's what I move.
Okay.
I sort of said why at the same time, but.
Or I
that-
can,
Yeah, go ahead.
I can
Go
second
ahead.
it, we can talk afterwards.
Right.
Okay.
Second.
So there's a second. So we're taking the word general out of the name and out of the second line of the charge, and obviously changing the revision date. Is there further comment, Mr. Wall?
Yeah, I mean, because we had, there was some difference of philosophical opinion last time about what it meant, and I was somewhere in between, because I agree that the charter language is simple and says bylaws, and the common sense reading of that is all the bylaws. I also understand that we're more likely, I mean, we were thinking right now that we're more likely to find issues, even if only clerical, mechanical, to be found in the general bylaws rather than the zoning bylaws. So my question is, this is perfectly fine, my question is, should we give some kind of further clarification or instruction to the committee, or just allow them to, because they're all experienced people, to proceed in whatever manner they want? And did the question simply either explicitly raise or implicitly deal with the wording and scope of the whole thing, or was there some sense of content or priority or desire behind that?
So there, it was just the title and the scope of their task.
Okay.
And I think that as they begin their work, which we're thinking about in a week or so, once we get through the first week or two of town meeting, and they're prepared for that, that there might be, I think there's likely to be other areas of scope that come up that they may want to come and review with you, because I think that that's something that you're a creation of the charter, but also you're the appointing authority, so you would be the logical people for them to review.
The other thing I would comment on is that at least at this point, I'll serve as sort of the liaison to that, and I can convey any messages we want. So, it's clear that, the zoning has created some trepidation in some of the membership here, just because it unpacks a whole different aspect of the review a little bit. I don't think it's problematic, but at the same time, I'll convey that, the conversation we had to them.
So I guess that the only concern that I had is some people of the three, some one or more of the three may have signed up with an understanding that it was only general bylaws that they were being asked to review. And so we do need to do something to inform the members of the committee, other than the person who raised the question, that this change is afoot, and see if that affects their willingness to serve, because zoning is such a specialized area, they may feel, one or more may feel concerned about that.
Mr. Wall?
Yeah, now we have another participant in this important question. I was just going to add that I think that the statement of the chair's willingness to serve as liaison and the phrasing here that we'll be able to assist satisfy me that we can address that.
Okay.
But Mr. Steinberg does raise a good question. I'm assuming if there are differing expectations, they will come to us sooner rather than later.
If you voted this, then we would circulate it back out and say, are you still on?
Yep.
So what, Mr. Wall, catch your before we take a vote. So we do technically have a motion on the floor. Any thoughts? Now that you've come in and had 12 seconds to process what we're talking about.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So, are we having to make a choice between including it for the sake of including it, and then losing a committee member, or not? Because if any of our committee members feel overwhelmed by the fact that it includes, and maybe you already addressed this, so I'm sorry, that it includes zoning, then I would hate to lose them, because that to me was not the focus here. But if they want to do it because they think it connects, then that's great. But I'm trying to avoid a strict interpretation that will thus leave us wanting for members.
Right.
Because I'm not convinced the strict interpretation is necessary.
We don't know.
I think we don't know at this point whether or not it would, or if the expectations of this change would be different than what those that volunteered to do it had in their mind. So I don't know, but
Is this time sensitive, or could we, the people who had been speaking to the members initially to gauge their interest, would we want to take some time between now and our next meeting to have that conversation?
I think,
In line with what Mr. Steinberg was talking about.
right, and I don't think, given what you were saying about when we're likely to sort of convene this group, we do have probably another week or so, so we can wait on it if
I'm confused. So we haven't sent the letters out?
Oh, we have.
No, we did.
So we did. So if the letters are already sent out, so they have their first meeting and they talk about it more, and then they decide to quit. Obviously I'm late and I'm not gonna ask you to reiterate everything, and I think we've discussed it previously in a general sense, and so I have every faith that if they get together and they start working on it and then they say, you know what, we don't wanna do this part, they still have that ability
Yeah.
to say they don't wanna do it.
Right.
And they don't have to quit
Right.
because they don't wanna
Right.
do it. They
Right.
can decide amongst themselves, that's not our focus, but it may turn out that we wanna talk about it.
Right.
I just don't want to feel like we did a bait
Well-
switch for them.
Maybe because you came in a little, Mr. Steinberg just said theoretically, well, what if one of the three people didn't, this becomes a potential issue for them, and what I hear you saying is, then they'll voice that at the first meeting and work it out. So it would seem,
Yes.
given that, because we
Yes.
don't have anyone who said, if it's that, I'm leaving, we could potentially go ahead, it's on our agenda, that we
Right.
could potentially go ahead and make that change now and assume that the three people will work it out. Or maybe they say, look, I don't care about that part, you do that and I'll do this, and
Right, and if Mr. Slaughter is comfortable in having that conversation with them, because again, this is a whole new thing, right?
Right.
And this is not just a very strict little thing that we came up with 5 bullet points they're supposed to do, it's much broader than that. So I think that seems fair, because I think there is a chance actually that one of the people I spoke with would, if they felt obligated
Right.
to do the entire zoning bylaw, would leave. And so I would rather not put them in that position, but rather let them have the conversation and then decide what they want to do.
Right. So in that case, we could probably go ahead with our motion that's on the floor, which is to
Good.
change,
We'll get this
to take
done.
out the generals
yep.
at the head, in the name and in the second line, and of course then update the revised date. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I am not opposed, I just want to make sure that the bottom of the charge, just because of the weird setup that we currently have with our other charges, should show the SME status was voted on this certain date. So the SME status should be voted as of the previous date, April 23rd, and then the revised
Okay.
date, I guess, would be tonight.
So voted April
But the
20th.
SME status date hasn't changed,
Got it.
rather than just yes.
Good point,
Right,
because you wouldn't be
Great.
able to find it in these minutes.
That's for sure.
right. All right. So that was unanimous, though? Okay. So it's unanimous.
As amended, again.
Right. All right, so, are there any other logistical issues related to town meeting that we need to deal with at this point?
Not that I'm aware of.
No special license or anything like that. So I believe we have exhausted our agenda for the evening, so I'll entertain a motion to to adjourn.
Are we adjourning this time?
Oh, or shall we just recess?
Recess.
We should probably just recess.
I think, so I think you can just declare that as chair.
All right, and we'll take a recess until we decide to
Okay.
adjourn.
So
Yes.
could I ask us to clarify, so I understood why we were going to do that Monday from the standpoint of we might need to get back together then Monday night still? Or are we talking at this time about meeting during? We're only talking about meeting after,
After,
right?
if we needed to, hopefully not,
Immediately
because
after.
otherwise we're not meeting until Monday.
Right,
Right.
but if
Right.
we are still talking about
After.
recess because
After.
Right.
as opposed to
Yeah,
just
caucus,
saying it's
yeah.
ongoing.
And
Right.
Got
And
it.
on Monday, the chair reported that you adjourned at the conclusion
Yeah,
of the town
we just
meeting.
wanted
Right.
to adjourn
And-
because we realized we
and-
didn't need to.
Right, friendly
Got it.
reminder, let's remember to adjourn ourselves at the
Yes.
end of the day.
So-
Yes, we did,
but
we
to
did.
re- To be specific
We did.
about it.
So we are in recess.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna have